Hello, good evening, Kamron.
Hey, how are you?
Very good. How are you, Kamron?
I'm doing well, very well.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you everyone for joining. Um, as you know, Kamron, today we would like to listen to you about your experience, your injury, and also I think the progress you had been making so far since your injury. We would like to have a little bit insight into your journey towards your recovery, and I think there are a lot of people joining. We are I think looking at close to 100 people and maybe more than that to actually listen to you. So we appreciate your time. Hello, everyone. I'm part of the medical team at Verita Neuro. I'm also partly responsible for certain medical operations in Mexico. So the purpose of this meeting is to give you a brief introduction about epidural stimulation, how does it work? And we also have Mr. Kamron, he's from the US, who is getting treatment in Mexico right now under our treatment protocols. I will maybe ask Kamron if he could introduce himself. Kamron, do you mind maybe sharing a few lines about yourself? Introducing yourself as a person, I think, and also where and when did your unfortunate incident happen? Mm-hmm. I think we have an internet problem.
I didn't get that last part, sorry.
So could you please start with yourself? Could you please introduce yourself?
I'm from the United States. I'm a C5 quadriplegic, currently living in Texas, but I'm receiving treatment in Guadalajara, Mexico. I received both upper and lower epidural stimulators. I'm at the end of my treatment in Guadalajara.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think there is a little internet connectivity issue, I think. So for those who could not listen, Kamron is a 21, 22 years old C5 spinal cord injury patient from the US. And he is currently going through epidural spinal cord stimulation implantation in Mexico under Verita Neuro Clinic. And he was injured in 2020, actually, around 1.5 years ago. And he's one of the few patients who are receiving 2 stimulators at the same time. So Kamron, in terms of your upper body function, maybe could you please tell us a little bit more about your limitations and how do you basically cope with your activities of daily life?
It's been fantastic. So my upper body, as far as my upper body, they've mapped out. I've regained the ability to work out, to do actual workouts, functional workouts with my pecs, triceps, deltoids, lower back, upper back, and abdomen. So as far as my upper body, it's been great. The whole process has just been, man, it's been mind blowing. It's been, it completely turned my life around.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think there is an internet connectivity problem. So I think we are changing the internet connection. Yes, Kamron, I think you're back. So I think we will get there towards your recovery after epidural stimulation. For those people who actually do not know your condition after the injury, could you please tell us a little bit more about your trauma and what was the immediate loss of functions you experienced after the injury? So what had been your limitations let's say in last 1 year after the injury? Sorry, excuse me, everyone. I think we have some internet connectivity problem. So Kamron will be joining us shortly again. So since we are waiting for Kamron, I think I would like to maybe start introducing epidural stimulation treatment. So as we know, of course, we will be listening to one of our patients like we did last time. He's a C5 quadriplegic patient from the US who is getting treatment in Mexico for his spinal cord injury. He received 2 stimulators, one for cervical spinal cord and one for the lumbar spinal cord. He's back, and it's been around 50 days since his treatment, his implantation of the stimulators. So Kamron, so I was asking, could you please give us a little bit brief introduction about your condition before the treatment, before the implantation of epidural stimulation. So since your injury was in, I believe, in early 2020, so how had been your condition developing, let's say in the last 1 year before the treatment or after the injury? Mm-hmm.
Leading up from my injury, it was really slow, very slow. I eventually gotten to where I could use my shoulders, full range of motion of my shoulders. And then after that, it was kind of like, that was kind of it, and I would go to therapy every day, and I was getting a little stronger with my abdomen and stuff here and there. But as far as mobility, I had zero, right immediately after my injury, I had no neck movement or anything. But when everything started to turn around is when I come here, and it was overnight. My entire life changed, over these 50 days. Within the first week, I was moving more than I had in the past year.
Mm-hmm. That's very great to hear. And so in terms of your previous physical therapy rehabilitation, how many what was the extent of efforts you had been putting towards your recovery before the treatment?
An hour a day every day at the outpatient therapy for 2 hours a day, 3 times a week. So
okay,
8 hours a week tops. That's all I could get.
Okay. Very good. And so I believe you also had a baclofen pump for your spasticity. So how had been the spasticity affecting your quality of life before it got better after the treatment?
After the treatment, it hasn't affected me at all. I'm actually slowly reducing my baclofen to get the pump removed because I have more control over my spasms now.
Yep, that's very good to know. And so I think I will also talk briefly about your surgeries. So as for Kamron, the decision was whether we should go ahead with the lumbar stimulator or the cervical stimulator. So for this, for the decision, we normally look at the location of the injury, the nature of the injury, and also the extent of upper body function. Because we normally have 2 options: either we go ahead with the cervical stimulator or lumbar stimulator for lower body function, or both stimulators at the same time. So for Kamron, considering how severe the injury was, unfortunately, and how limited his upper body functions were, we had to go ahead with the two stimulators. One for his cervical spinal cord to restore movements in his hand function, and one for his lumbar spinal cord to restore walking ability. And for the cervical stimulator, we implanted a laminectomy, which is a small surgery to remove a small part of the bone from the posterior component of the vertebral body, called lamina actually. So it's basically drilling a small hole using a minimally invasive surgery to insert a small plate of electrodes into the spine, into the epidural space, to cover some segments of the cervical spinal cord, which are responsible for more like bicep, tricep, shoulder, and more like distal upper limb functions, finger function, wrist function. And the second surgery was actually, which was performed during the same operation, during the same setting. It was for the lumbar spinal cord, where L1 laminectomy was performed to insert electrodes over um, um, lumbar enlargement, which is a huge network of nerves in the lumbar spinal cord responsible for walking ability. It contains all of the motor neurons, which are responsible for like stretch reflex and all the functions in lower limbs. And this is also actually same surgery, L1 laminectomy to insert a small electrode array into the spine. And then of course we had to take, in Kamron's case, we had to take special precautions because he already had a baclofen pump, plus he was receiving two stimulators in his body, which itself um, came with two batteries, 2 units, right? So I think it was it did take some time for us to actually figure out where are we going to implant two extra stimulators in his body without risking any interference between different stimulators, and particularly his baclofen pump, which I believe we did successfully. There was no issue. We did not find any problem with the baclofen pump or between the two stimulators, and we were able to use both stimulators either simultaneously or individually, depending upon where we are in the mapping stage. And so Kamron, could you please tell, because it was a big surgery, it took almost 7 hours to complete the surgery, including anesthesia and a little bit of recovery period. So how did you feel before the surgery? I mean, in terms of the communication, did you understand fully what you are going to get, and what do you expect from the surgery?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I understood very well everything, the expectations and what I would feel and what I should expect with the following days, and it was all very clear to me. Mm-hmm. They made it very easy.
Mm-hmm. And how did you feel after the surgery? Well, in terms of maybe feeling sick, feeling headache, anything? So what did you feel?
I felt great. I felt great after surgery. There was no side effects, thankfully. There was no side effect after the surgery.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so after the surgery, around I think 2 or 3 days later, we started programming of your stimulators. And so what do you feel about the programming? So just for the audience, programming or mapping is basically a way to use the stimulator to perform to stimulate different muscle groups. So after the stimulation is implanted, it delivers a continuous electrical currents to the spinal cord. So there are 16 small channels, 16 plates in the epidural stimulation array, which we can actually turn on, turn off. We can combine to target various segments in the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is quite compressed, and each segment of the spinal cord is responsible for a certain muscle group. So the aim of the mapping is to basically find which muscles are responding to which electrical currents and frequencies, and then fine tune those settings to kind of like make those movements coordinated with the brain. And once we have a little bit of muscle control, this is where the real work starts from patient point of view where they have to actually go through extensive repeated training for X amount of time. But over time, since there is a little bit of more connection through the brain, with the brain through the spinal cord, we normally see more muscle control, more muscle mass, more muscle function coming back with time. So maybe Kamron, I think you can maybe tell us, since it's already 50 days, I think, since we started your training. So what are the changes you saw in those 50 days in your condition?
Man, I've seen a lot. I could go on. A big change in my frame. I put a lot of muscle on. The bone structure looks different because of the muscle. Just a lot of movement, a lot of leg movement, foot and fingers, abdomen, arms. Just I could go on with as far as what's happened within the past few days. There's so many things, good things. Every day was good. Every day was great because there was always a new muscle firing, or we found something new, or something. So as far as from when we started to now, it blew my expectations away, way better than what I expected.
Okay, so so specifically speaking, could you please tell us a little bit more, like in terms of, let's say, certain movements you were not able to make before, and now you're starting to make those movements, just as an example?
So, I couldn't move my arms at all before, and now I'm able to do full tricep extensions. I'm able to pinch and grab bowls or cups, and while standing, I'm able to take steps. I'm able to sit in my chair and do kick my legs up out in front of me, like leg extensions, bench press. I can do bench press. Just there's so many movements that I can do now that were impossible before because all I had was just shoulders and barely that, and now I have all these different muscles firing. Like I said, tricep extensions, bench press, leg extensions have been a really big thing for me. Being able to kick my legs up on command has been a really big thing for me. It's really, really cool.
And so I think many of the audience might be wondering what are our end goals from the treatment. So maybe I can start. I think you will share the same goals which we discussed. So the idea is, let's say, for upper body stimulator, the cervical stimulator, idea is to get back basic functions. I think we will aim to target finger function, wrist function coming back, where patients regain basic abilities to perform on their own, feeding themselves. I think hopefully at some point being able to shower by themselves and take care of the personal hygiene. Also, hopefully patients will be able to do the intermittent catheterization, for example, or perform daily bowel and bladder routine on their own. At the same time, improvements in the sitting balance, improvements in ability to transfer to and from the wheelchair, for example, using upper body muscles. And so those are the basic things. Of course, on one side, it will improve very significantly the quality of life. And I think this is what most of the patients who are unfortunately quadriplegic are expecting, are hoping for. At the same time, this will allow us to put more focus on the lower body function. So the ultimate goal is to be able to start working with the upper body support. So as soon as we see certain level of upper body functions coming back, we can then put more focus on the lower body, where we can also train more extensively the muscles in the lower body to restore the ability to stand up, lock the knees, use the hip flexors, for example, by the quadriceps and all the muscles in the more distal parts of the legs. And so I think this will be the goal. This is quite ambitious goal, but we are on the way for sure. And I'm extremely happy with the progress. I'm getting regular report from Mexico, and the progress we are making in 50 days. If we continue, and Kamron particularly continues the way he does in the hospital, which is 2-3 hours, 4 hours of training in the gym and exercise, we are hopeful to have a much better picture in 6 months. And after 6 months, we will see what can be done, for example, in terms of maybe a little bit of more programming of the stimulator, and then we will hopefully move to a next step. Do you have any thoughts on this, Kamron, about
Yes.
your goals and?
Yeah, well, one thing I was really excited about is about 20 days after the placement of the stimulators, I noticed that when my stimulators were off, I had more voluntary movement than from the stimulation of the spinal cord. Without the stimulators on at all, I have more tricep movement, and I had zero before, and now I have a little tricep movement with the stimulators off, voluntary, and so far everything has been great. Like just like you said, we're on the path of trying to target and get everything functional. But every muscle works. We have every muscle firing. It's just a matter of mapping it and getting it functional. Because I could fire every muscle in command. It's the process of getting it to where it's functional. Every muscle we found every muscle in my body.
Yeah,
every muscle's firing.
Yeah. So this was, of course, I think this is very important. Our aim is to find all or most of the muscles which actually we need to perform those functions. So this is where we are. I think this is where our experience in mapping and programming comes in quite handy. As maybe Kamron, you also saw we had to send a specialist to Thailand, Kit, who is working with you. He's actually he's one of the most experienced therapists we had, who had been working for many years, and I think he's also playing an important role towards your recovery. He's there specifically to work with you, to work with your upper body functions. So this is also, I think, this is quite important for patients to understand that the implantation of stimulator itself, it does not do much. Unfortunately, it only delivers the currents. It's actually the mapping and programming which plays an equally, if not more important role in the recovery process. And then, so talking about your goals, I think people again would like to hear what is it that you are expecting ultimately. What do you see yourself eventually? Where do you see yourself?
I mean, sky's the limit for me. I think transferring, driving, feeding myself, getting dressed, bathing, stuff like that. I think that I can take what I have right now and with time turn it into something really big. And especially with the team here is great. Everybody's really professional and just amazing. The whole team is amazing. The mappers and therapists, the doctors, they're all just amazing.
We appreciate the compliments, Kamron. So the motor function, as we know, is one component of the spinal cord injury. Then, of course, there are other issues which are equally concerning, including the sensory function. Then there are autonomic functions, blood pressure regulation, temperature regulation, and then bladder bowel functions, other functions. So do you mind sharing a little bit, your thoughts on if you saw changes in other functions apart from the motor function?
Of course, yes. Blood pressure function. I've noticed a pretty big difference in that, and sweating. I didn't sweat before my surgery, and now I'm sweating all the time. In the gym, I'm sweating a lot. I would say I got about 40 or 50% of my ability to sweat back, which is amazing because now, I can go outside when it's hot and I can enjoy the weather when it's hot outside instead of having, to go inside and cool off and go back out. It's been really nice. That's been the biggest, I think, is my ability to sweat because I'm on hot days. I'm not so hot anymore. I don't like overheat or anything anymore. I'm able to release that heat.
I think the body temperature regulation, cardiovascular function, they are at one point they're all connected to your like the nervous system, your spinal cord. all regulated by autonomic nervous system, which is basically kind of like auto mode of our nervous system, without direct conscious input. And yes, in our experience also, we see a lot of patients having better blood pressure regulation, cardiovascular function, better circulation also. I think they can visibly see the heat dissipation. So this is one of the problems, because they are unable to sweat. They have very limited cardiovascular function. They are unable to get rid of the heat. This puts them at risk of having, let's say, heat stroke, or it significantly reduces their stamina, because they just feel extremely hot. So I think this is important thing, and I think this plays an important role in how much efforts you are able to do in the gym, right? If you have a better cardiovascular function, so everything is connected, everything is related towards, and hopefully everything is contributing towards your recovery.
Yes, it's changed my life tremendously, because I live in Southeast Texas and it's always hot, very, very hot. So, during the summer, I could barely enjoy a day out, but now it's a lot different. It will be a lot different for me. Mm-hmm. So that alone has changed my life, not including, everything else, just that alone has changed my life.
Mm-hmm. And here I would also like to give a little bit insight into the stem cell treatment you received. So although it was a smaller component that's discussed part of your treatment, but I think it plays a crucial role in the recovery process also.
Yes.
It can reduce the inflammation, particularly in your case, since the injury is not very old, it's less than 2 years old. So and I think most of the scientific community believe our spinal cord retains certain level of potential to recover some functions within first 2 years. Not much, but there is still some potential. There is still some a probability. And if we are able to do the stem cell treatment during this period, it reduces the likelihood of like thick cystic changes or scar tissue formation over the spinal cord. And this keeps kind of like the spinal cord tissue alive, and if you are able to do more like training, so there are more regeneration, more pathways coming out of the injured spinal cord. So this improves those functions. And I think this is probably partly responsible for the functions you are able to perform even when the stimulator is turned off. So I think this is quite remarkable to see a certain permanent changes taking place in your spinal cord even when the stimulator is off. So this gives us a lot of hope and a possibility that in the future, if we continue to do what we do now, at one point we may be actually able to perform many of the major functions without the help of the stimulator. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree.
Yes. And so, please go ahead.
I don't know what the future holds, but I think it's bright. I'm a man of faith. So, with God and my family and my community in my corner, I don't think that there's anything that can stop me. I believe the sky's the limit for me. So I'm going to keep pushing, with you guys and, like I said, God, family, and friends. I don't think there is a limit.
Absolutely. I think there is I think the threshold of recovery, in my opinion, is still very, very far. I think we have a long way to go. So so this is again, this also gives us a lot of hope that if we do the right things, we put all the efforts we could. I think there are a lot of functions we can achieve it eventually. So this is the start, really. And the best thing which I always tell to younger patients, which is actually the most common group of spinal cord injury patients, that if they can spend 3, 4 years, 5 years, or even 10 years, towards their recovery, and they have a better quality of life, more independency back, eventually they still have a significant part of the life, significantly improved as compared to before the treatment. So I think it's really is worth putting all the efforts towards the recovery. And we know this is not a cure, but it is really, I think, the best thing available to a spinal cord injury patient at the moment. When we hope there will be more therapies available, of course, we are also playing our part wherever possible to to contribute, to make contributions towards other areas in spinal cord injury research and developing new products. So we hope there will be other, maybe better products available in the future where patients will be. So this kind of treatment, if you have any muscle mass back, any function back, of course, this will put you in a significantly better position to qualify for any other treatment in the future.
Yes. Yes. Tom, I think, yeah, the spinal cord is a weird thing. It's time is what it takes, hard work, and I believe that you'll get out what you put in. If you you have to work for it. There's no way around that, but it just takes time. It's a slow process. You have to be patient, and you have to have the grit too. You have to be able to work for it.
Okay, I think so. We are getting a lot of questions, so maybe we can start taking a question. So the first question is, I think is more for myself. Does this treatment work for T12 injuries? I think in most of the patients with T12 injuries, it will not work. The reason is T12 is actually the part which we hope to see intact and we hope to stimulate. If this very specific component is injured, then we cannot implant the stimulator over this part. For epidural stimulation to work, the injury has to be above T11, T10 and above levels. But we do have other treatments available. The treatment called Lamispine and other stem cell based treatments for T12 injuries, which we can do for those patients. Okay, so we are getting a question about C2, C3 injury. He's total quadriplegic. We are very interested in more information. Yes, we will share more information after the call about the treatment. So the second question is this, I think it's also for myself, maybe you also know the answer. How long the stimulator will work in the body? Does it have to be replaced? The answer is its life expectancy is around 9 years, but in many cases it may be able to work for more than 9 years, maybe 10 to 12 years. It also depends on the use. After 9 years, we don't know what will be required on our side. I think if let's say if, for example, in Kamron's case, if we continue to see changes we are seeing now, hopefully after a few years, we may be able to see quite a remarkable permanent recovery where we do not need the stimulators. So in this case, it does not have to be replaced. Patients can simply remove the battery and keep the components in the spine intact, or they can remove the whole system out if required. In those patients where it is still required for the training, then it can be, we can replace the battery with the smaller surgery around maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour. And it will be more simplified surgery because the battery itself is just under the skin around the hip area. In 6 months, if programming is needed, will he come back? Or can that be done remotely? Unfortunately, in most of the countries, there are no experts who can do programming remotely or on their own. The stimulator is also used for neuropathic pain. So the programming for nerve pain, it can be done, of course, by the staff of the stimulator provider, which is Medtronic. But for the motor function programming, it has to be either in Mexico, in Thailand. We also have a center in India, and we are also actually working with a treatment rehab provider in Canada, which we are not sure yet, but I think we will know very soon in near future. So those are the 3 confirmed places, and Canada is the 4th possible location where programming can be done. And so we have a question from Andrew about your sensory function. Could you maybe tell us more about your sensory function if you saw any changes?
Yes. Sensation.
Yes. Sensation.
Yes, I have noticed a little more sensation, not in different areas, in the same areas that I had sensation. It's just a lot stronger. I have full sensation of my entire back, not 100% sensation, but I can feel my entire back down to my elbows, on both sides, and it's really weird. But in some spots of my leg, like right leg.
Okay, great. The next question is, if someone is planning on stem cell treatment and epidural stimulation, which one should be done first? So it depends on how severe the injury is. For patients with complete traumatic spinal cord injuries, I think the epidural stimulation is the option, because unfortunately, we can see the extent of damage on the spinal cord, and in most of the patients, it does not recover. So I would say epidural stimulation plus stem cells. For patients with incomplete spinal cord injuries, where they do have a certain level of functions already, but there is, let's say, a balance disorder or weakness or other minor issues, I would say, as compared to complete injury. If the injury is incomplete, then I think stem cell treatment is probably a preferred option. So how long have I think so the next question is, do we do stem cell treatments too? Yes, we do. Then is a semi-ventilator user but with semi movements be viable to use this stimulator? So from semi-ventilator, I mean it could be the portable ventilator like BiPAP, CPAP. This is what I assume. Yes, if patient is on a portable ventilator, this can be used. And we will, of course, will go for the cervical stimulator first, and we will also hope to improve the respiratory function in those patients who are on ventilator. And I think once they are weaned off the ventilator completely, then maybe we can go for the second stimulator for the lower body function, unlike Kamron, who was able to breathe on his own. So we can go ahead with the both stimulators at the same time. How long have you all been doing this? So we had been doing, actually personally, I had been doing since 2014. I was actually part of the first team ever to do this on I would say on a commercial level, where it was outside the clinical trial. So it was in 2014. And at Veta Neuro, we had been doing since 2016, and we had treated more than 100 patients so far. So will this work for T4 complete? Yes, T4 patients are good candidates, in my opinion, where they have good upper body function, a good sitting balance, I assume. Then the focus could be only on the lower body function. Sorry, Kamron, I think we have other questions also. Okay. So the bladder and bowel improvements, yes, I also forgot to ask Kamron about your bladder bowel function. Did you see any changes so far? I know it's a little too early to, in my opinion, to expect a significant change in the bladder function. The thing is, this is not our direct target after the stimulation. The target of the stimulation is more for the a segment which is located slightly higher level at T12. Bladder function comes from the sacral nerves, basically. But did you see any change in your bladder function, any maybe minor changes, bladder bowel functions after the treatment?
I think it's a little too early to tell now, but it's really weird because before my injury, I had I've always been able to kind of feel my bladder. So it's kind of hard to tell whether or not it's improved. I think that'll come with time. And I see another question about my age. I'm 21 years old. I'll be 22 in December.
So the next question is, what kind of IPG, which is implantable pulse generator, we use, the actual stimulator? We use Medtronic Intellis, which is the most advanced version of the Medtronic, the next generation Medtronic stimulator. Then, sorry, I think we have more questions here. I hope to hear the progress of the removal of baclofen pump and spasticity reduction. So I think so we have members of our audience. They are wishing you good luck, and they wish you will be able to remove the baclofen pump. I think In my opinion, I think this is possible. So first of all, I think even before the treatment, Kamron had been reducing the baclofen dose. This is correct, Kamron? Maybe you can tell us a
Yes,
little bit
correct.
more. And then I think after the stimulation, we normally see a good regulation of those upper motor neuron pathways which produce spasticity.
Yes.
And if we see a certain level of regulation, we normally see good improvements in spasticity levels. So I think this is one of the goals from the treatment, to be able to hopefully significantly reduce the baclofen pump and maybe eventually get on the oral baclofen if required, instead of having a whole different level of stimulators in the body. How effective could this be for post-injury for 10 years? We continuously treat patients who are 5 years, 10 years, sometimes even 20 years old after the injury. The muscle function is an important component which determines the extent of recovery. So as long as patients are able to do some level of physical exercise, any kind of like body weight training, they have active muscles, they have good cardiovascular function, we normally see good recovery. But if someone is very, very dormant for like 20 years, there is very significant muscle atrophy, there is maybe spinal cord atrophy, then it takes significantly greater amount of efforts to recover functions. So it depends on patient's general well-being and the physical condition. And also, I think we have another question, Kamron. How is your spasticity levels now in terms of as compared to before the treatment?
They're pretty much non-existent.
Okay, and okay, so I think once you are back under your, because we don't want to do now, it's maybe too early, but I think in the near future, once you are under the supervision of your primary doctor who is responsible for changing the dose, maybe we can talk, and I hope he will agree to maybe reduce the dose, and maybe hopefully eventually in the near future we may be able to actually stop using the baclofen pump.
Of course,
completely.
yes, that's my goal.
Yes. Are these electronic stimulators? Can you tell us more about what type of stimulators are, and if they're external or internal? So the stimulators are electronic stimulators. They are internal stimulators. They have to be implanted inside the body. The stimulator has two components. One is the electrodes, which are in the spine. The second one is in the battery, which is also called IPG, which is in the abdominal wall. So it has two components, all internal. Are you able to push enough to stand without lift assistance? I assume not at this point, Kamron.
Not at this point. I can stand using the assisted e-pacer. I can lock my knees and stand, but yeah, I have assistance, of course. Yes.
Okay. And were you able to get bicep function back?
Yes, I was able to get bicep function back, but it's very weak. My biceps are really weak, and my triceps are really dominant. So my triceps are really extremely strong. Right away, the day after we started mapping, I believe I started getting my tricep function back, and they just been growing and growing and growing. And so it's been a process of getting my bicep stronger without the tricep overriding it. So yes, I did get bicep function back, but it's a little too weak right now to be functional. But we did find it, and it is getting.
So the next question is, excuse me, the fingers are now moving. Were they moving at all before the treatment?
No, there were not. There was nothing below the shoulders. Absolutely nothing. And now I can open and close clamps and grab a hold of things and release things and stuff like that.
Where was the surgery performed? Was it in Mexico? Yes, for Kamron, it was in Mexico. We do have, of course, Thailand as our the primary location. Mexico is also our new location, which started last year. So Kamron is in Mexico at the moment. So we got people are cheering for your success, Kamron.
I'm grateful.
how do you motivate yourself and not give up? I think this is one of the most important questions for many patients. I think this is so I think maybe you can also tell us, you are ex-Marine, I believe. So this was a good start, but then maybe, you know, I think this is important for people to know.
Yes, it's I mean, it's just something you have to do, you know. And like I said before, I'm a man of faith. So, you know, Jesus Christ alone motivates me. I don't need my alarm clock to wake me up. But I mean, when your back's against the wall, the only way to go is forward. So, you know, if you want something bad enough, you don't need an alarm clock to get you up in the morning. You know, I think that you just gotta find the grit and find something to lean on and find something to fight for, and that's what you do it for. You know, you don't do it for your. I don't do it for myself. I do it for those that help me and those that inspire me, and I put a lot of my faith in Jesus Christ. So that's what motivates me.
So I have the next question. I have a dislocated hip. Would I have to get it fixed before or after the treatment? Yes, I think it's important to get the hip dislocation fixed before the treatment. It's important. And okay, has anyone had symptoms worsen? As in, if I don't have spasm now, will they come after the stimulator? Yeah. So first of all, first specifically for spasms, yes. So I think we need to understand what produces the spasms and spasticity. So after the spinal cord injury, there is the first stage, which is called spinal shock, where it shuts down completely. It doesn't do anything at all. It's just like no muscle tone. You know, the muscles are very weak, very floppy, soft muscles, because there is absolutely no communication passing through the injury. This stage lasts for like few days. Then the spinal cord starts to kind of like wake up, and it starts to recover those pathways. So during the recovery process, when we move from a complete to incomplete injury, we almost always see spasms, spasticity coming back. So spasticity is not a complication of the treatment. It's actually a part of the recovery process. We understand it can bother patients, but there is absolutely no way for us to go through the recovery process without going through the spasms, spasticity, and sometimes even a neuropathic pain, which is when the sensory function comes back. So spasms are good in a way, and yes, after the treatment, we normally expect certain level of muscle tone, spasms, spasticity coming back for some time, and then it's a matter of time before those pathways are being regulated at the same time using the stimulator. Okay, so how does it feel after the surgery? I think we had answered this question. Is this similar to VNS, which is a vagal nerve stimulator? So vagal nerve stimulator is more like a single contact. This is, I think, is more complex. It stimulates a much bigger part of the spinal cord. So in a way, it is, but it's I would say it's much more complex than a vagal nerve stimulator, at least in terms of the implantation and the programming. So about your bladder function, which we had answered, can you show some of your hand movements? I think the stimulator is not turned on yet, Kamron.
It's not. No, I don't have it with me now.
Sure, but we do have a lot of so we do have a lot of footage and videos. We will be happy to share after the consultation, when he's actually performing those movements. How's the room at the place? Maybe you can quickly answer, Kamron. Accommodation.
Wonderful. The place is beautiful. It's been a great experience for me. It's like a vacation, you know. The rooms are really good. The hotel's extremely nice. The people are very nice, and everything that you need is right here, like walking distance. So I think that's really important. But there's so much help from the team that you don't go without anything. All your questions are answered, and just as far as rooms go, they're beautiful.
And also for for those people who might be wondering, the first part of the treatment is in the hospital, of course, after the surgery, the initial stem cell treatment, and also initial recovery period. And once patients are stable and there are no more concerned about wound healing, then patients can be transferred in Mexico in our outpatient facility. In Thailand, it's also in most of the cases is still in the inpatient stay for most of the period. And does all the therapies also take place in Mexico, or after surgery, does the patient come back home for therapy? So the question is, do we do all the therapies in Mexico, or you are able to do therapies on your own? So the initial part of the treatment is the mapping. We program, and after the program, we share the treatment plans with the patients, and patients are able to perform those therapies back home, and then they can return back to us after maybe 6 months or 1 year for more programming. How long is the process from start to back home? So it's 35 days for the single stimulator. For 2 stimulators, it's around 55 days. And for stem cell treatment, it's only 7 days. How big is the size of the stimulator? Can it be turned on 24/7? The size is, I think its weight is less than 100 grams, and its size is like 2 inch wide, 1.5 inch like long. It looks like a small iPod Nano, the first version of Apple iPod, on X-ray scan. Can my mom stay with me while recovering? Yes, of course. We allow one caregiver to stay with the patient. This is actually encouraged. I have small sacral wound. Do I have to wait for that to heal? As long as this is not infected, it is fine. If this is infected, it's better to treat the infection before the treatment. Where can I see the videos of Kamron? So Kamron, I think you are also active on Instagram. So yes, we can share Kamron's Instagram. He's uploading his stories. I think you are also writing a long, maybe a book or a journey also, Kamron.
Yes,
you plan to book. Okay, so he wrote a book, and I think this is where maybe I think everyone should maybe keep an eye and to get an insight into his treatment. So I think that's it. Can the stimulator be turned on 24/7? Yes, if required, it can be turned on. It is designed to be turned on 24/7 if required, because it is also used to treat neuropathic pain, and in those patients, it has to be 24/7. So we don't have any more questions, I think. So maybe do you have, okay, sorry.
I'm going to put my Instagram in the comments for anyone who wants to see my workout videos and my progress.
Yes. Yes. The surgery price, so it's for one stimulator is close to $98,000 with the stem cell treatment and all the therapies. For 2 stimulators, like in Kamron's case, is close to 170,000, 160 something. But 2 stimulators is quite rare. It's not required in most of the patients. We would only perform the lumbar stimulator, so the standard treatment is close to $98,000 something. So, okay, I think we don't have any more questions. 1 second. So actually, one question. Some people are quite skeptical about the clinic location, just wondering why is the clinic located in Thailand and Mexico? I think it's also it's because of the regulations. I think, Kamron, you were also a little bit skeptical before, but maybe could you please tell? I think you can answer. What is it that you are not able to get in the US? I think you are in a better position to see what are the regulations. There's a lot of red tapes actually.
Yes, there's lots of red tape to cross in the US, and I was a bit skeptical about the location, but man, this is probably the best decision I've ever made. I love this place. It's great. The location, the people, everything is just It's just been wonderful, man. The whole 50 days has just been like a vacation, like I said before. It's been great.
And I also have something to add. Actually, I just want to give a little bit background. How did it all start? So basically, in Asia, there had been a lot of like research on stem cell treatment on spinal cord injury, and so Asia had been treating more spinal cord injury patients than anywhere else with alternative treatments, and then this is how epidural stimulation came into as an alternative option also. So actually, again, we were the first one to start the treatment and on like outside the clinical trial. So this is where we are in Asia, and also in Mexico. We recently started. So I hope this answers the question. I think we don't have any more questions, Kamron. So maybe if you would like to send a message across and maybe share your thoughts for people who are who are considering this kind of treatment. So if you have anything to say to those patients.
Yes. If you can get it, man, get it, and just grind, pray, repeat. You got to get up every morning and just work. I mean, that's all you can do. Like I said, when your back is against the wall, the only way to go is forward. Grind, pray, repeat. That's my message. It's just you're gonna get out what you put in. So just you got to work for it though. It's work and time, and patience.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Kamron. We appreciate. I understand you had a very extensive day in terms of your training. You just finished your day, so we appreciate your time, and we wish you all the best. And thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nasir, and thank everyone for joining.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.
You too. Good night.